Dear students, in this lecture I am going to discuss about time series forecasting. Mainly I will explain different types of pattern of time series data. Finally, I will explain how to choose appropriate forecasting techniques. So, the agenda for this lecture is introduction to time series analysis and forecasting and time series pattern. There are 5 types of pattern. One is a horizontal pattern, trend pattern, seasonal pattern, trend and seasonal pattern and cyclic pattern. Finally, after looking at different patterns, finally I will explain how to select correct forecasting method. First, we can see the importance of forecasting. Suppose we are asked to provide quarterly forecast of sales for one of our company's products over coming 1 year period. Production schedules, raw materials purchasing, inventory policies and sales quotas will all be affected by the quarterly forecast we provide. That is why the forecasting is more important. All other planning activities are based on the forecasting. If there is any problem in forecasting, that may affect all our planned activities. So, what will happen? Consequently, poor forecast may result in poor planning and increased cost for the company. How should we go about providing the quarterly sales forecast? We can provide sales forecast by good judgment, intuition and an awareness of the state of economy may give us a rough idea or feeling of what is likely to happen in the future. But converting that feeling into a number that can be used as a next year's sales forecast is challenging. We can classify forecasting methods into 2 categories. One is qualitative and quantitative. Qualitative method generally involve the use of expert judgment to develop forecast. When qualitative methods are most appropriate? Qualitative methods are appropriate when historical data on the variable being forecast are either unavailable or not applicable. Many times we may not have the historical data. If you do any innovative products, we cannot predict about the sales. That time we need to go for judgment. So, that type of forecasting techniques is called qualitative forecasting. Then quantitative forecasting methods. When quantitative forecasting methods can be used? Past piece of information about the variable being forecast is available. If you have enough information, the historical data, then we can go for quantitative forecasting method. The information can be quantified, it can be easily measurable. It is reasonable to assume that the past is prologue, that is, the pattern of the past will continue in the future. In these situations, only we can go for quantitative forecasting. But in coming lectures, we exclusively focus on quantitative forecasting methods, not on the qualitative. Is perfect forecast possible? A forecast is simply a prediction of what will happen in the future. So, manager must accept that regardless of the technique used, they will not be able to develop perfect forecast. So, the manager should understand the perfect forecast is not possible. Now, we will go back to the time series. What is time series? If the historical data are restricted to past values of the variable to be forecast, the forecasting procedure is called a time series method and the historical data are referred as time series. If the data changes over a period of time, then that type of data is called a time series data. The objective of time series analysis is to uncover a pattern in the historical data or time series and then extrapolate the pattern in the future. The forecast is based solely on past values of the variable and or on past forecast error. In this lecture, we discuss the various kinds of time series that a forecaster might be faced with in practice. These includes constant or horizontal pattern. The time series may follow trend, the time series may follow seasonal pattern or both trend and seasonal or a cyclic pattern. So, generally if you say time series, in x axis is the time, in y axis is the value. So, we assume that the value differs only based on the time, we are not considering any other variable. That kind of data is called time series data. That if you plot the time series data, there are 5 possibilities possible. Sometime the data may follow a horizontal pattern, it may be like this, or there may be a trend, it may be like this, or there may be a seasonal, or sometime there may be a trend also. See that there is a trend and the seasonality also will be there, or there may be a cyclic pattern also. So, we are going to discuss about the 5 patterns. Time series patterns. A time series is a sequence of observations on a variable measured at successive point in time or over successive period of time. The measurement may be taken every hour, day, week, month or year or at any other regular interval. The pattern of the data is an important factor in understanding how the time series has behaved in the past. So, based on the pattern of the data, we will use appropriate forecasting techniques. If such behavior can be expected to continue in future, we can use it to guide us in selecting an appropriate forecasting methods. That is the reason we want to see the pattern which are present in the time series. To identify underlying pattern in the data, a useful first step is to construct a time series plot. What is a time series plot? A time series plot is a graphical presentation of the relationship between time and the time series variable. So, in x axis it will be time, in y axis variable. So, when you plot it, this data, this figure is called a time series plot. Time is represented on the horizontal axis and the value of the time series variable are shown in the vertical axis. Let us first review some of the common types of data patterns that can be identified when examining a time series plot. As I have previously mentioned, why we have to see the different types of pattern? Based on the pattern only we can choose the right forecasting techniques. Suppose I have a data, say week 1 to 12, I have sales in terms of 1000. If I plot it, so this plot is called a time series plot. The first pattern, see horizontal pattern. In the previous slides I have shown you a data set where there is a horizontal pattern. What is the meaning of horizontal pattern? There is up and down, but it is, there is a variation, but we can say the mean is centered. That type of pattern is called horizontal pattern. So, a horizontal pattern exists when the data fluctuate randomly around a constant mean over time. To illustrate a time series with a horizontal pattern, consider the 12 weeks of data which I have shown in the table 1. These data show the number of gallons of gasoline in terms of 1000 sold by gasoline distributor over the past 12 weeks. So, the average value or mean of this time series is 19.25. The actual is 19,250 gallons per week. See, I have shown this picture. The figure shows the time series plot of these data. Note that the data fluctuate around the sample mean of 19,250 gallons. Although the random variability is present, we would say that these data follow a horizontal pattern. There is a slight randomness, but it is horizontal pattern. The term stationary time series is used to denote a time series whose statistical properties are independent of time. In particular, when we say stationarity, that means the process generating the data has the constant mean is same, and the variability of the time series also constant over a period of time. So, if the mean and the variance is same, then we can say that time series data has the property called stationarity. A time series plot for a stationarity time series will always exhibit a horizontal pattern with random fluctuations. However, simply observing a horizontal pattern is not sufficient evidence to conclude that the time series is stationary. So, we have shown that when we plot the data set, there is a stationary pattern, but only by looking at the figure it is not enough to decide there is a property of stationarity. More advanced text on forecasting discuss procedure for determining if a time series is stationary and provide methods for transforming a time series that is non-stationary into a stationary series, but we are not going to discuss about that procedures. So, changes in business conditions often result in a time series with a horizontal pattern that shift to a new level at some point in time. For instance, so far we have drawn up to 12 weeks, we found there is a level means that mean is fixed. For instance, suppose the gasoline distributor signs a contract with a customer in week 13. With this new contract, the distributor naturally expect to see a substantial increase in weekly sales starting from week 3. Look at this, from week 13. So, week 13 onwards, right, week 13 onwards there is an increase in sales. So, table shows the number of gallons per gasoline sold for the original time series and the 10 weeks after signing the new contract. So, there is a drastic improvement. So, now the figure 2 shows the corresponding time series plot after the agreement. Note that increased level of the time series beginning in 13. See this, up to this there is no problem. So, up to this there is no problem, but 13 week onwards there is a increase in level. Say for example, here mean is approximately 19, here mean may be approximately only for this level 2, level 1, it may be around 30. This change in the level of the time series makes it more difficult to choose an appropriate forecasting method. Selecting a forecasting method that adapt well to changes in the level of a time series is an important consideration in many practical applications. So, the forecasting techniques which you use has to incorporate the change in level. Although time series data generally exhibit random fluctuations, a time series may also show gradual shift or movement to relatively higher or lower values over a longer period of time. If A time series plot exhibit this type of behavior, we say that a trend pattern exists. Previously we talked about horizontal pattern. Now we are going to talk about the another type of pattern called trend pattern. What will happen? There will be a, suppose this is a time, there will be a trend, it may be increasing trend or there may be a decreasing trend. A trend is usually the result of long term factors such as population increases or decreases, shifting demographic characteristics of a population, improving technology or changes in consumer preference. If you plot this kind of data set, you may find there is a trend may be increasing or decreasing. To illustrate a time series with linear trend pattern, consider the time series of bicycle sales for a particular manufacturer over the past 10 years. Note that 21,600 bicycles were sold in the year 1, 22,900 bicycles were sold in year 2. You see that 21.6, 9, 5, 9, 9, 5, after that this is 31, right. So, in year 10, the most recent year we have 31,000, 4,000 bicycles were sold. So, there seems to be a increase in trend. So, visual inspection of the time series plot, please look at the right hand side, shows some up and down movement over the past 10 years, but the time series seems also to have a systematically increasing or upward trend. So, initially it is increasing, there is a decreasing, there is a increasing, there is a decreasing, then it is increasing. The trend for the bicycle sales time series appears to be linear and increasing over time, but sometimes a trend can be described better by other types of pattern, that may be a non-linear also. So, what is the meaning of non-linear? Maybe like this, there is like this non-linear. So, here we are seeing some linear pattern. For instance, the data here, look at the year end revenue. The data in table shows the corresponding time series plot on figure 4 shows the sales revenue for the cholesterol drug since the company won say Indian Medical Association approval for the drug in 10 years ago. The time series increases in a non-linear fashion. The time series increases in a non-linear fashion, that is, the rate of changes of revenue does not increase by a constant amount from one year to next year. So, there is a increasing in trend. Okay. So, it was, so this is not a linear, this is a non-linear trend. In fact, the revenue appears to be growing in an exponential fashion. Exponential relationship such as this are appropriate when the percentage change from one period to the next is relatively constant. The third type of pattern is seasonal pattern. The trend of the time series can be identified by analyzing movement in the historical data over multiple years. That is what you have seen in the trend. But the seasonal pattern are recognized by observing recurring patterns over a successive period of time. Seasonality, winter, summer, winter, summer. Sale of AC during summer will be more, during winter it will be less. So, that type of pattern is called seasonal pattern. For example, a manufacturer of swimming pools expect low sales activity in the fall and winter months and peak sales in the spring and summer months to occur each year. And this variation is within the year. Manufacturer of snow removal equipment and heavy clothing, however, expect the opposite yearly pattern. Not surprisingly, the pattern for a time series plot that exhibit a recurring pattern over a 1 year period due to seasonal influences is called a seasonal pattern. While we generally think of seasonal movement in a time series as occurring within 1 year, time series data can also exhibit seasonal pattern less than 1 year in duration. For example, daily traffic volume shows within the day seasonal behavior with the peak levels occurring during rush hours, moderate flow during rest of the day, and early evening and light flow from midnight to early morning. So, within the day also there may be a seasonal variation. Another example of an industry with sales that exhibit easily discernible seasonal patterns within a day is the restaurant industry. In the restaurant industry also you can see there is a seasonality. As an example of seasonal pattern, consider the number of umbrellas sold at a clothing store over past 5 years. We can see there is a seasonal. What will happen during rainy season? There will be a more sales. During the summer season, there will be a less sales. Table 5 shows the time series and figure 5 shows the corresponding time series plot. You see that here there are 4 seasons 1, 2, 3, 4 quarter. Then we can see there is sales figure. Table 5 shows the time series and figure 5 shows the corresponding time series plot. The time series plot does not indicate long term trend in sales. In fact, unless you look carefully at the data, you might conclude that the data follow a horizontal pattern with a random fluctuation. You see that? Quarter 1, quarter 2 it is higher, quarter 3 it is low, quarter 4 again it is low. Okay. Then quarter 1 it is low, quarter 2 it is high. Like that there is a pattern. However, closer inspection of the fluctuation in the time series plot reveals a systematic pattern in the data that occurs within each year. That is, the first and third quarters have moderate sales. This one, this is the first, second, third, fourth. See 1 and 3 has the moderate sales. The second quarter has the highest sales. See here, it is the second highest. That is, the first and third quarter have moderate sales, the second quarter has the highest sales, and the fourth quarter tends to have the lowest sales volume. Thus, we would conclude that the quarterly seasonal pattern is present. Now, we are going to see another type of pattern, that is trend and seasonal pattern. We have studied trend separately, we have studied seasonality separately. Now, there may be a data set that may have both the pattern. Look at the data set and corresponding figure. Some time series include both trend and seasonal pattern. Why I am saying trend? You see that there is a seasonality, but there is an increase in trend. So, we can say it is this way. So, trend component also is there and the seasonal component also is there. For instance, the data in table 6 and the corresponding time series plot on figure 6 show quarterly television set sales for a particular manufacturer over the past 4 years. Clearly, an increasing trend is present, this one. However, figure 6 also indicate that sales are lowest in the second quarter. See that this is the lowest. Of each year and highest in quarter 3 and 4. Thus, we conclude that a seasonal pattern also exists for television sales. There is a trend, at the same time there is a seasonal pattern. In such cases, we need to use a forecasting method that is capable of dealing with both trend and seasonality. The next type of pattern is cyclic pattern. A cyclic pattern exists if the time series plot shows an alternative sequence of points below and above the trend line that last for more than 1 year. You may ask, what is the difference between seasonal pattern and cyclic pattern? In the seasonal pattern, the variation is within the year. For example, say this is quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4. So, there may be seasonality like this, but cyclic pattern in the sense this is year 1, year 2, year 3. So, some years there may be high, after some years it will be low. So, that type of pattern is called cyclic pattern. Many economic time series exhibit cyclic behavior with regular runs of observation below and above the trend line. Often the cyclic component of a time series is due to multi-layer business styles. For example, periods of moderate inflation followed by periods of rapid inflation can lead to a time series that alternates below and above a generally increasing trend line. For example, time series for housing cost. Sometime housing cost may be higher for 2-3 years, after some time the housing cost, real estate cost may go down. So, business cycles are extremely difficult if not impossible to forecast, because it is the duration is more than 1 year. As a result, cyclic effect are often combined with the long term trend effect and referred to as trend cycle effect. Previously, we have seen trend seasonal. So, similarly, we can have trend and cycle also together. At last, selecting a forecasting methods. We have seen 5 types of pattern. So, the underlying pattern in the time series is an important factor in selecting forecasting method. The reason why we have studied about this pattern is, so the type of pattern will guide us to choose appropriate forecasting techniques. Thus, a time series plot should be one of the first analytic tool employed when trying to determine which forecasting method to use. If we use a horizontal pattern, then we need to select a method appropriate for this type of pattern. Similarly, if we observe a trend in the data, then we need to use a forecasting method that is capable of handling trend effectively. Dear students, in this lecture I have discussed about time series forecasting. I have given an introduction for time series data. Then I have explained different types of pattern in time series data. The purpose of studying these different types of pattern in the time series data is to choose appropriate forecasting techniques. So, at the end I have explained how to choose appropriate forecasting techniques.